With just was asking you that. Oh, you think I know how to do this so far. So good afternoon, everyone. We've got a blank session here. Unfortunately, this happens with events like this, but we had a last minute cancellation last night. So unfortunately, the participant who had signed up for this slot was unable to join us today. And so instead, you get 20 minutes of me. Uh, my goal here is just to really give a little bit more information about what Tradewind is, how it operates, our relationship with the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, but more importantly, what some of the opportunities look like coming downstream. Um, you probably are somewhat familiar with session that we hold now every other week. It was every week up until the end of this month. And of course, not this week because we're here, but the forecast and ask me anything session is an hour long event like this where we use AirMeet and we basically try to give you a look down the pathway of what's coming up, not only in terms of potential opportunities we might be aware of within the Tradewind OTA for you to bid on and compete for, but also different events and engagements that we're trying to drive. And I do have some really fun stuff to report on where that's concerned as new as yesterday. So that's kind of cool. First and foremost, first, just thanks so much for being a part of this event today. We're kind of overwhelmed with the participation level from our members alone. I mentioned this through some of the messaging that went out, but we've got 48 slots that we had to fill for this. And within 3 hours of asking for presenters, we had 50 who submitted. Now, some of them conflicted within the various tracks, so we weren't able to fit them all in. But all told, within just a couple of days, we had well over 100 of our members who wanted to pitch their capabilities. And we're grateful for that and glad that everyone kind of got the message that this could be important. So we are going to set up what we will refer to as an overflow edition of this event. And more details for that will be forthcoming. We'll probably hold it in a couple of weeks. We'll be reaching out to those submitters, but that the window for being included in that has closed. But it's important to point out there will not be an audience for that. So literally, it's kind of a recording appointment, if you will. But at least it can be included in this set for inclusion and consideration for any eligible requirements that might get a direct award as a result of this particular event. So that said, we'll trickle on a little bit more here, and I'm certainly going to be open to any questions people might have. Okay, looks like I'm reconnected. Talk so fast. Anyhow, with a distinct from the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, the Research and Engineering Group for autonomy. And the problem set that was being kind of dissected at the time was what is trusted autonomy? In other words, what are the attributes that one must seek and confirm in order to be able to trust an autonomous system? What is going to at the battlefield level, right? So we had some great conversations from people all across DoD, but more importantly, ecosystem to answer a questionnaire that we put out to provide some insight for them to consider as they go about recognizing what their requirements look like and where it might go. Right now, this is being referred to as the Optima initiative, I believe is the word used by Dr. Jared Riddick, who is leading this whole thing. And so we got a little over 20 responses from our ecosystem, which was great, and we will take more. So if you have that email hanging out there, we certainly would invite you to submit, even though they've already held their first think tank meeting, if you will. More will be coming. And we are providing this information back to the government without attribution. So don't feel like you're going to reveal your hand or create a conflict of interest downstream. We are not attributing names to the input. We're just tagging it with respect to the size of an organization that you might be, large, small, traditional, non-traditional. That's it, nothing more. So the interesting thing about this, and it really does put a focused spotlight on what we mean when we say engagement at Tradewind. And what I mean by that is this is your opportunity to literally touch and begin to help shape how the government defines its requirement, right? To define what things should be considered. So if you have what you feel is a unique um, or otherwise competitive advantage over others in the field, you want to make sure that you include that as part of your input, because if it's that important and the government recognizes it, you'll probably see it when it comes out through a request for information in a year from now. But that's really how these things work. So if you're uninitiated as to how to do business with the Department of Defense specifically, and then the federal government writ large, this is where the ideas are shaped. And it's where the government begins to kind of formulate their vision of what success looks like. So the earlier in those stages you can have an impact, the better chance you have of being competitive at a successful level. So that's something that we were really excited about. We had about a 3 hour long conversation. It was a working group type format with back and forth from all matter of sources. It was DoD. It was a lot of Navy folks there. I think we had one from the Army and one from the Air Force. So it was pretty well spread, pretty well attributed. Beyond that, though, we know we've got some things coming down the stream in our pipeline. Some of them are too early to talk about, but I will and can share with you that some of them will begin to enter arenas we haven't seen yet before through Tradewind. One of them, for instance, is in the venue of live virtual constructive training, but it's not building training modules. Rather, it has to do with understanding more how a learner learns by using artificial intelligence and more importantly, machine learning technologies. So that could be interesting. They're testing the waters with us right now. I can't talk about the customer at this point, but we do have a little bit more engagement coming downstream, and we can't wait for that to happen and bring that to you. So with that said, understand that every time an opportunity comes through our Tradewind pipeline, if you will, it has the potential to be a rainbow colored unicorn. And what I mean by that is most likely none of them are ever going to be similar to the other ones. And that might have to do with the specificity of the technology or the application of AI or machine learning. It might have to do with the timeline, with the budget, with the customer, all of those things, and any combination of them. So in some cases, you might have 10 days to turn around a white paper, and others you might have 5. In some cases, it might be dealing with analytics more than anything else. For instance, low Earth orbit identification of objects versus live virtual constructive training type initiatives. So you really do have to keep your eyes open. We have been seeing some fantastic submission rates on behalf of our membership. Recognize that many times that an opportunity comes through, we are engaging a platform called Vulcan, and that is operated and created for specifically the special operations community. So we don't own it, we don't control it, we don't manage it. It's just simply a tool of the trade that we employ, but it does give the basis for competition and evaluation as the government needs it to in order um, to award uh, a project to someone. So you'll see some specificity into how you have to submit your information and so forth. And those are all laid out every time we do an announcement. Along those lines, it's important to recognize how we do this. So I mentioned that we're aware of some requirements that are starting to enter our pipeline now. As those curate, and it's not often very long curation time. Sometimes it's a month or two, sometimes it's a week or two. It really depends on the customer bringing the work to Tradewind. Um, but as we get to the point of, say, 80 to 85% certainty that this is actually going to release as an opportunity for our ecosystem to work on, then we'll go ahead and send out um, an announcement. It'll be a announcement notification. And it's just a heads up as to, hey, we know there's this thing coming. It looks like this, it walks like that. Be aware that it's coming so that you have the time to react, that you can get a hold of technical people, of your proposal writers and so forth, and let them know that you might have a thing coming. Um, Usually shortly after that, we'll come out with the official announcement, and that's where you'll get all the details as to how to submit and how to compete. So, um, and of course, anytime you need to, you can reach out to us. It's just real simple, ecosystem at tradewindai.com, and we can answer your questions there. I'm entering that now in the chat window. Any questions from you all? Appreciate having some time with you. Okay. Well, obviously we did not have a prepared session for this, but I did want to give some folks a chance to learn a little bit more about what Tradewind is. I did mention that we would talk about um, uh, our relationship with the Jake and so forth. So realize that the Tradewind OTA is awarded to IN3, which is the company that we all work for here at Tradewind, as the operator of the OTA. So oftentimes the government will award a contract to a third party to operate the mechanics of it. In our case, we have two primary goals. One is to completely um, um, redesign the acquisition process from soup to nuts for the Jake, now the CDAO. The other is to build that community of interest, which is the ecosystem driven part of it. And that's what I do as the director of the ecosystem. So that's really our involvement here. And we've got multiple touch points within the CDAO office, most of them acquisition and contracting folks. And we do tie in with the mission focus areas as much as possible. This is one example of how we're providing more value to them as well, because obviously the folks in the mission teams at the CDAO will be taking a look at all of these presentations as well. So that said, we're about at a close. I know we've got the next session starting at 1:05, and I need to prep for that as well. Obviously, as a host, I got some things to do in the background here. So if you come up with any other questions, please give us a call about sharing algorithms across departments. Um, sure, Mark. Good question. I personally have not laid eyes on it, but I think what Brett was talking about was the formation of those AI task forces enables the Navy to communicate those things at his biweekly meetings. So there's an awareness and a socialization of what types of algorithms are being propagated throughout their environments. And then as a result of that, the opportunity to share those. So that is one case where you can get kind of viral within the Navy, is by engaging with um, the one of those task forces, and then having that message being carried across to the others. I'm sure as our relationship continues to mature with Brett and his groups, we'll have opportunity to engage with those task forces either as a singular focused event, or maybe it makes more sense, each task force individually, and hopefully we'll be able to make an event like that available to you as well. Um, so that said, I am going to leave stage here and close this session out and prep for our very first presenter in the Joint Force Protection track. But obviously, you can use the email to get back a hold of us. We will be sending out post-event communication to everyone. So stand by for those. You probably won't see those until Monday or Tuesday at the earliest, as we all transition out of Orlando, Florida, and get back to our offices and better climate to be able to respond to you guys appropriately. So again, thanks for your attention this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thanks.